Hello and welcome to Tech Trends. I'm Olayemi Oshidende, and here's what we have on the program this week.
We focus on emerging technologies. At the ICTEL Expo in Lagos, tech experts, business leaders, and tech enthusiasts gather to discuss how technology can drive innovation and development in Africa. And then later, James Sarichera, co-founder of Afrique.info, will be talking about how emerging techs can help solve some of the most pressing challenges in Africa.
We'll give you more in just a moment. Do stay with us. This is Tech Trends, and I'm Olayemi Oshidende.
The purest case of an intelligence explosion would be an artificial intelligence rewriting its own source code. The key idea is that if you can improve intelligence even a little, the process accelerates. At a tipping point, like trying to balance a pen on one end, as soon as it tilts even a little, it quickly falls the rest of the way. The 2025 edition of the ICTEL Expo rides on the theme Leveraging Technology for Innovation and Development in Africa, providing an avenue for tech enthusiasts, policymakers, and entrepreneurs to learn about the digital trends shaping both current and future jobs, businesses, and economies.
Thank you so much. I know there are a lot of other.
The conference on ICT and telecommunications also sets the tone for conversations on artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data, and infrastructure to remind attendees that Africa's future lies in how well we use technology to solve our own problems.
Around the world, we see how technology is redefining productivity, reforming institutions, and reshaping economies. In developed nations, artificial intelligence, robotics, innovative infrastructure, blockchain, and precision agriculture are no longer the future, they are the present. The fourth industrial revolution is not waiting for anyone. And here in Africa, despite structural challenges, we have an unparalleled opportunity to leapfrog outdated systems and embrace digital transformation with useful energy, which we have in abundance, bold vision, and adaptive ingenuity. Our continent has what many parts of the world envy: a rapidly growing, tech-hungry youth population, a blank slate in several industries, and an unmatched hunger for solutions that truly work for us. The big question is no longer can we innovate, but how boldly, how quickly, and how impactful are we willing to act?
The global wave of innovation is already creating ripples across industries. And as Africa's population grows younger and more digitally connected, so does its opportunity to lead in innovation. But that means building strong digital infrastructure, encouraging homegrown solutions, and tackling issues like digital literacy, access, and cybersecurity head on.
Our startup ecosystem raised over $400 million in 2024. The ICT sector now contributes nearly 20% to our national GDP. This progress is not by chance. It is the result of intentional government policy, bold entrepreneurial talent, and strategic investments in innovation infrastructure.
At the heart of this year's conversation is artificial intelligence, the buzzword transforming everything from agriculture and healthcare to education and even entertainment across the continent. But beyond the hype, there's a growing need to ask critical questions, like how do we ensure Africa is not left behind? And how do we develop our own talent, build relevant AI systems, and regulate its use responsibly? In one of the sessions, a panel of forward-thinking innovators, researchers, and entrepreneurs dive deep into these questions.
There are three things that come together in terms of the digital infrastructure mix. You've got to have the right kind of power to power. You've have the right kind of connectivity or the connectivity ecosystems, fiber penetration, actually meaningful broadband penetration, and you've got therefore have the data centers. And it's when you have these that brings the capacity in. Okay, now that's what data centers do, and I hope I've described it for the layperson. Our world revolve around these buildings, and what's also happened over the years is that the demand for cloud has grown significantly, but most of these data centers are in Europe or the UK and US. Just to put something in perspective, Africa has 18% of global population. Actually, I think it keeps going up. I think it's probably moving to 19 or 17, it's 18, probably 19. We have about 4% of global GDP. I always call that the prosperity gap. Because if you look at the amount of data center infrastructure that is installed in Africa, it's about just over 1%. That's a digital gap, of which we need to fill to close the prosperity gap. Because digital is a key thing that closes that prosperity gap.
Are we building innovators or just passive consumers or users? I would say that we are building innovators, but we still have a long way to go. Yeah. We have a lot of consumers, yes, a lot of consumers, but we have started building innovators. But the thing is that we are not at that level where, as a nation, we can say that we're creating our own AI models. But when I say AI models now, I'm trying to talk about LLM really, but there are different models we are creating. So, but because most people know about AI now is about LLM. So, and we're also at a level where the AI is also taking into consideration our own context. So we are raising innovators, but we don't have enough the critical mass that will help us to push to where we're supposed to be as a nation.
We need to continue to push the envelope behind AI innovation. How are we catalyzing innovation in different sectors, right? And we continue to do that today. For instance, through our Science Research and Innovation Council, we fund a number of AI companies, actually, in different sectors. The second principle is contextual relevance, right? How are you, for a sector-specific issue, what kind of LLMs are you using, right, to anticipate problems in that particular sector, right? And so, in terms of reviewing that, right, how do things match? As this sector is growing, how are you preparing to build with that sector? So contextual relevance is very important. Then you have responsibility, right? Responsibility is a key principle behind our AI guidelines. How are you building with people's data?
The consensus is that Africa must not just be a consumer of global tech, it needs to lead. And that means investing in people, platforms, and policies that will turn innovation into real, lasting impact.
Oblivious to the punishing midday heat, a wheeled robot powered by the sun and infused with artificial intelligence carefully combs a cotton field in California, plucking out weeds. As farms across the United States face a shortage of laborers and weeds growing resistant to herbicides, startup Agin says its robotic solution named Element can save farmers money, help the environment, and keep harmful chemicals out of food. Warden, a mechanical engineer who spent 5 years at Tesla, went to work on the robot after relatives who farm in Minnesota told him weeding was a costly bane.
Each robot has 10 motors. 6 of those motors are used for the arms on the robot, and as the robot drives by, it's able to identify the weed and basically plug it out with a hoe as it drives by with precision, so it actually strikes the weed and pulls it out as it goes by.
According to Warden, weeds are becoming immune to herbicides, but a shortage of laborers often leaves chemicals as the only viable option.
Instead of saying, hey, we're going to ban these chemicals, what we want to do is provide an alternative that's lower cost than the existing solution. So it ends up not becoming a political issue if you can just say we have a better solution that's more affordable for possibly like the first time compared to chemicals, and that is also a win for the health and for the environment.
Element, the robot, resembles a large table on wheels, solar panels on top, metal arms equipped with small blades reaching down to hoe between crop plants.
We, companies like iGen, they may be small now, but we believe that they're going to be the industry giants of the future. So I think of like Ford and the Model T, or Edison and the light bulb. Kenny and iGen are going to be, industry giants of agriculture in the future. We're going to have their robots weeding farms all over the world.
The robot's AI system takes in data from onboard cameras, allowing it to follow crop rows and identify weeds.
I've never heard of any farmer that says, I want to use chemicals more than they have to use, because it's an input cost, right? You just have to spend money to use more of it. If they could use less, they will use less. The way that we're addressing the weeding problem is going back to the old age technology of using a stick with a blade at the end of it, which we call a hoe. And so we're combining the new robotics and AI with the old technology of a stick and a blade, putting it together and then delivering a solution to the farmers.
Agent's vision is for workers who once toiled in the heat to be upskilled to monitor and troubleshoot robots. Along with onboard AI, robots communicate wirelessly with small control centers, notifying handlers of mishaps. Agent has robots running in tomato, cotton and sugar beet fields and touts the technology's ability to weed without damaging the crops. The company is focused on winning over politically conservative farmers with a climate-friendly option that relies on the sun instead of costly diesel fuel that powers heavy machinery. Did you ever wonder why unwanted emails are called spam? The term spam to describe pesky messages actually started with canned meat. In the TV show Monty Python's Flying Circus sketch, a group of Vikings repeatedly chanted spam, the brand name for canned processed meat, over and over in a cafe, drowning other dialogue. Eventually, this sketch became the perfect metaphor for unsolicited emails that keep flooding our inboxes, and spam mail was born. Spam mail, also known as junk mail, are usually messages you never asked for. Some may come from overzealous marketers, but others are more dangerous, like phishing emails attempting to steal your personal information by appearing to come from your bank or insurance company. The very first spam email was sent in 1978 by Gary Thweck, a marketing manager, to around 400 people advertising his company's new computer model. His spam efforts reportedly earned the company $13 million in sales. Today, spam is a serious issue. That's why we have spam filters and constant efforts to protect inboxes everywhere, not just emails.
From artificial intelligence to blockchain and even decentralized finance, emerging technologies are no longer buzzwords. They are tools that, if harnessed correctly, could help Africa solve some of its biggest challenges, whether it's access to healthcare, education, or inclusive economic opportunities. But the question is, how do we move from potential to progress? And how do we ensure that these tools are shaped by African realities, African innovation, and even African leadership? Joining me on the program this week is someone right at the heart of this conversation, James Sarichera, co-founder of Afric.info. Let's dive in. Thank you so much, James Sarichera, co-founder of Afric.info, for joining us on Tech Trends. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Olemi. It's great to be here.
Now, James, Africa is at a turning point in its digital journey, and there's a lot of talk about it, taking charge of its own future. From where you sit, what do you think needs to be in place for that to happen? Are we talking about better skills, stronger infrastructure, or even smarter policies?
Thanks, Olemi. Well, we're living in probably the greatest opportunity in the last century for Africa to close its development gap. And AI provides that opportunity. And so the key things that we need to do and do with a matter of urgency are really three things. One, we need to look at compute, our data center infrastructure and the surrounding supporting infrastructure for that. We need to look at not just centralized data centers, but also computing that is at the edge that can be used in remote places, in farms. Secondly, talent. We need the very best Africans, the very best minds that we have on the continent working together. This also includes those that are in diaspora, but also collaborating with some of the best minds generally across the world. There's implications as well for our education system. We need to be embedding AI into every level of education from grade 0 right through to tertiary level. And lastly, but actually probably most importantly, we need the power, because without clean energy to actually drive this revolution, then we can't do any of the other things.
Now, James, let's assume that those foundations you've mentioned are in place. Technologies like artificial intelligence, which is often mentioned as a game changer, become real tools for change. What does that now mean for Africa? I mean, how do you see AI helping solve some of the continent's biggest challenges?
Well, I think AI is more than just a game changer. COVID taught the continent a really harsh lesson. When push comes to shove, you're on your own. And so what we need to do is to build our capabilities here using this new technology, so we are able to create cures that we derive from our ecology that can address not only ailments here, but ailments from around the world. But another really important area is food sovereignty. And feeding the nation is usually most countries' biggest bill, and quite often the source of a lot of the debt that we see across the continent from a national perspective. So us being able to yield more from the same amount of land that we have and doing it in a way that's ecologically responsible is something that AI can help us do and accelerate. As I mentioned, education needs to change completely, because you now have a situation where all of the world's knowledge is available in an instant. That's got implications for absolutely everything, including defense. So it's more than a game changer. It's actually an existential priority.
Now, and building on what you just said, and onto the fourth industrial revolution, there's this idea that Africa has a chance to leapfrog our data systems without necessarily having to follow the traditional path. Do you really believe that's possible? And how can technologies like AI and even blockchain help us do that?
Oh, categorically. In fact, when you look at the initial early AI arms race or generative AI arms race, it was basically an arms race at all costs. And so you had very energy hungry, very water hungry data centers doing the processing. And there's talk as well about the use of untested means of powering these systems, just so that we can get further ahead quicker. But I think coming from behind, it gives you the opportunity to do it better. We can do it more ecologically, using less power, using less water, but doing it in a way that is also more useful. So I don't think we need to aim to have the most powerful AI in the world. We just need to have the most useful.
All right. Well, James, let's talk about something you have, experience in, which is using AI and blockchain to open up access to funding for development projects. Can you tell us briefly, how that works and why an approach like that could be a game changer for finance in Africa?
Well, I think if one speaks to most global investors, when they look at Africa, what they see is risk. And I think the potential for de-risking projects in Africa, and particularly projects that involve the private sector and entrepreneurs, with blockchain and AI, is absolutely transformational. You provide the opportunity for fractional contributions to what can actually be very large projects. You also provide the opportunity for a decentralized approach where multiple people from anywhere in the world can actually come together and make something big happen. So one of the key tenets of blockchain technology, for example, is transparency, and everybody being able to see how funds have been funneled. So I think there's a real opportunity for transformational transparency, essentially, in terms of being able to fund projects, but also innovation in terms of how transactions are structured.
I'm talking about transparency that you just mentioned. One of the challenges with digital finance in Africa is trust. Many people are still wary, especially at the grassroots. Now, in your experience, what does it take to build a transparent and inclusive financial systems that everyday people and communities can really believe in?
Well, I think it starts with actually building together from the ground up, and not necessarily coming with a solution that is imposed from the top down. So, for example, with for Africa Day, we're releasing a voting platform that will enable Africans all around the world, and also people that want to see progress in Africa, to vote on some of the most important renewable energy projects in Africa. But a key difference here, and this is where the technology comes in, is that the people that are closest to it, so people, for example, within 10 kilometers of a project, they actually get an extra weighted vote. They actually get 3 times the voting power, so that local communities on the ground have a genuine say in what's going on around them. So they've got to be part of that picture, and right from the beginning, and not at the end when infrastructure is already going up.
Well, even though the road, to that is still unfolding, one thing is clear, and that's the fact that the tools to build a more inclusive digital future, are already here, and it's up to us to use them for our development. But James, as we look ahead with all of these tools, I mean, AI, machine learning, IoT, blockchain, all these tools are now at our fingertips. What excites you, the most about where Africa is heading with them?
I think Africa can approach these technologies in its own unique way. So, for example, right now you've got less than 0.1% of African languages that are on the internet, and so there's a huge opportunity to actually involve more people in creating solutions. First of all, from an African perspective, but from a global perspective. Not having those languages available actually deprives the rest of the world of an incredible reservoir of indigenous knowledge from many different cultures. So I'm very excited about the application of language and culture, and having a much bigger say in terms of the development of the fourth industrial revolution and AI.
Well, thank you so much, James Sarachera, co-founder of Afric.info, for sharing your insights with us on tech trends.
Thank you, Alim.
That's all for this week on Tech Trends. I hope you enjoyed the episode and picked up something new along the way. Remember, Tech Trends is here to keep you updated on insights, trends, and developments happening in the tech space. Also, don't forget, you can catch all our episodes on the channel's TV YouTube account. Make sure to watch, share, and like your favorite editions. Until I come your way again, I'm Olayemi Oshidende, and I'll see you next time.